After 3 months on the road, it's about time that I sit down and answer your questions, along with a special guest to come later on. But first, let's get into round one. What do you do for work? The simple way to answer this is that I have many forms of or many streams of income. YouTube is the main source of that, and the deals, the brand deals that I do that you all see each week or every other week with companies like Bluetti, one of my biggest long-term sponsors that I am so grateful for, because honestly, ad revenue alone is not enough to keep somebody on the road unless you are a massive channel. Right now, I'm bringing in money though from AdSense on YouTube, so ads that play before and after my videos that you guys might see. I make money through brand deals. I make money each month, a smaller amount, through Patreon and patron donations. And then the other source of income that I make is much more sporadic, and that is through small sources of revenue for myself at least, like Instagram and TikTok, and doing some sponsored posts over there. Where did you get your camper? I found my camper actually in a crazy, crazy way, in my opinion. It was the day that I sold my bus, which if you didn't know, I was in a bus prior to this rig. I sold my bus, I signed over the bill of sale, not too far from my current location, went back to my four-wheel camper that I was working in at the time, opened up the laptop, and immediately saw this camper. What I thought was a dream camper definitely turned out to be a little bit more work than I planned, but it was, in my opinion at least, divine timing. I found this truck that the camper sits on actually within 100 miles of the camper, but both were in Minnesota. So I put a down deposit over Venmo, which don't be like me, that was probably stupid. I'm glad it worked out. But I put a deposit down, and about a week and a half later flew out to Minnesota to pick up the truck at a dealership, a used car dealership, and then drove up to pick up the camper and started my almost 3,000 mile journey back to the West Coast and down the West Coast to California. Why did I choose to live on the road full time? This has taken many shapes and forms over my journey on the road and getting to the road. At first, I actually thought that I was just saving on rent. I had a government job in the Bay Area near San Francisco, and if you've heard of how much it costs to live out there, my rent and utilities were astronomical, and I was living with people who weren't exactly my type. They weren't outdoorsy, they didn't do many things outside of work. Work was their life. And I realized that I was pretty unhappy in that environment and that I wanted something more and to save more of my paycheck, because I was putting almost half of my monthly income just to pay for a bedroom in a home with 5 other people. I originally bought my van in hopes of saving rent money, and I planned to live in it in the city, which is actually why I chose the white Sprinter-esque van. It was a Ford Transit, and I felt like it just blended in. I would be able to park in the city without drawing too much attention to me. I would be paying less than a third of what I had paid for rent, and I could hopefully save money while fulfilling kind of a fun dream of mine that I had had to live tiny. Obviously, I don't live in that van anymore. I decided after a while that they asked us to come back to the office. I had Tara at this time, and I didn't want to live with a puppy in a really small space in the city and still work 40 hours a week. So I sold that van, I paid off my loan, I paid off my debts, and I bought my bus in cash. Y'all have seen that saga by now. It was a money pit and drained me so quickly, I honestly couldn't even see it coming. So I decided once that was fixed up well enough to sell, that I would sell it. And that's how we got here. So now, why do I live on the road full time? I think currently my reason is to live frugally. I have some really big goals for the next few years that I want to start saving up for. I also really love this simple way of living. I love having fewer belongings and being able to take them everywhere with me. I love the life that it allows me to give my dog, because I have more time, which to me is honestly sometimes more valuable than money, to give to her and to spend with her. And I'm not trading in my time for money just to keep up with bills, and also sacrificing time with her and my community. How does Tara do with living on the road in the truck camper? So speaking of Tara, she is my dog, if you don't know. She absolutely loves it out here, and honestly, I kind of joke, but it's true that she does better on the road than she does in a house. Whenever we've had to stay in a home for my builds, or we've been temporarily in something like an Airbnb or a hotel, I can tell that her mood drops. She just wants to sit outside, she wants to run around and be free. And so this lifestyle has allowed me to give that to her. And truly, she does just thrive out here. She's also been really used to living in smaller spaces since she was a pup. And so in terms of traveling or driving, she doesn't have that anxiety, because the day I picked her up and I put her into my van, and that was the beginning of our journey together. So she doesn't really know much else. And additionally, I think a lot of people are concerned about her being in such a small space. But right now, for example, you can see it's blown out in the background because it's so sunny and nice outside, and she's just chilling in the sun. So truly, she's outside more than inside, and as much as we both live in here, we're really only inside when the weather is bad, it's dark outside, or when she wants to come in, which honestly happens more now than I thought it would in the past. This is her home, and she will come in when she wants to, and she loves being in here, especially with me. What is Tara's food regimen? So I know that I show kind of infrequently what I'm feeding her, and I've gotten some commentary about, what's in her bowl, and that seems so weird and interesting. And what I want to say first off is I am not a vet. I'm not a doggy doctor. I have no expertise in this area. All I know is what I've researched and what works well for her and her digestive system and growth and weight management, in addition to her activity level, which I think is pretty high compared to a lot of dogs. So with all that said, I am trying to transition her away from a kibble heavy diet to something that is much more whole food based. She does still have kibble in every bowl right now, and sometimes that's all I have and that's what she will get. When that's the case, I always soak it with water, because one of the biggest things that I've come to understand is that kibble can be very dehydrating for dogs, and especially since she is so active, I want to make sure that she is as hydrated as possible. So first and foremost, kibble base. I in the past have done grain-free, but if I do that, I will add grains to her diet, because again, the research I have done does not support that that is the healthiest thing for them long term. And usually that'll look like some rice or some oats. And she's allergic to chicken. So usually that protein is a bison, a venison, salmon. And I try to switch it up at least every season, if not every month and a half to 2 months, basically when I get her a new food bag, just because I think diversity is key for humans, and why wouldn't that be the case for dogs? So different protein source as often as I can. I will also a couple of times a week add in things like salmon or sardines, always just in water without the added sodium, because it's not the best for dogs apparently. Sometimes if I have a meat source that is, again, not chicken or any poultry, honestly, so no turkey either, I will go ahead and give her small cuts of that as well. Things like salmon skin, basically whatever I can add to her diet to get good healthy fats in. And on that note, I've recently started adding a whole raw egg and the egg shell for added calcium. Finally, Tara is super silly and she loves her greens, so I will give her select small amounts of greens, again, seasonally and just based on whatever I have. This season, she's also really enjoyed butternut squash, so I'll have some cubed up butternut squash that I'll toss in there, along with maybe some apple or a spoonful of yogurt for probiotics. How do I heat my camper, and do I like my chosen heat source? Well, conveniently, it's right here in the corner. This is the Dickinson Newport Marine P12000 propane heater. And I think when I say that, the first thing people think of is the moisture must be terrible. But as you can see, and I'm trying to point in the camera lens, that flue actually is drilled through the roof of the camper and externally vents. It is a double-walled or double insulated pipe that allows the heat to recirculate back through this fan right here, which does a great job at heating the camper even when it's sub-freezing outside. But it also allows that water vapor to off-gas or leave the camper, as opposed to recirculating it like a Mr. Buddy or similar non-vented propane heater would do. And in terms of being able to sit next to it, this table is actually here out of an abundance of precaution, because where I'm sitting right now is where Tara often likes to sleep at night. Conveniently, this is angled down, so she is actually in one of the warmest spots of the camper all night, aside from the bed where the heat rises to. But that said, she cannot get to the heater, so even if this unit was to get hot, which typically the only part that does get hot is that flue, she would not be able to touch it, get hurt by it, or be injured. I have accidentally touched this before. It wasn't the most pleasant thing. I did not burn myself, and that was after hours of running it. And so as much as I've tried to give space from the wall and from any materials and from Tara, I'm truly not very worried about it. What rigs have I had, and what are the pros and cons of each? I think there's a lot of information out on the internet now about why you should choose one rig over the other, so here I'll just focus on why they worked or didn't work for Tara and I, starting with the van. Simply put, the van was expensive, especially as somebody who worked for herself and didn't need to have have a loan out on a rig, and it also was not built for a dog and a human. I got Tara halfway through the build and just did not plan the space well to have a 70-pound dog living in there with me, and so it was just really clunky and difficult to move and exist in the space together. The pros, on the other hand, having a brand new van, I bought it with 12 miles on it, was reliability and a warranty for sure, especially moving from that into the bus. It was a pretty rude awakening, having to deal with a lot of mechanical issues up front later on. But the van was super reliable and also just really nice. And if I'm being honest, one of the biggest perks about the van was not a social perk so much, because I think there is some stigma against people who have beautiful, really nice brand new vans in the community, unfortunately. But in public spaces, I was not viewed as much as I hate to say it, but a freeloader. I think a lot of people look at us in older rigs or buses or non-traditional, non-Revel Sprinter vans and think that we must not have jobs, we must not contribute to society. And these are all stereotypes and judgments that aren't true. But I never really dealt with that in the transit. I was never asked to leave anywhere. I was never asked to move. I was never told that I was loitering when I was just buying my groceries. And those are all things that have happened to me since in other rigs. So definitely some pretty big perks, but they didn't outweigh the cons for us. The bus was a huge upgrade in terms of space and cost, so I fixed those two earlier problems from the van. It was like an apartment on wheels. Tara and I could have done jumping jacks and had a dance party in there. I had a huge kitchen, and she had multiple areas that were hers, that she could exist in comfortably all the time without ever being in my way. The cost of the bus was also much lower. I spent under $10,000 on the bus itself and less than $10,000 on the build, bringing the entire cost before mechanical issues to right around $20,000. Comparing that to a $65,000, almost $70,000 van build, including the van and the build, it was a vast departure. But that came with a lot of mechanical issues, which brings me to the cons. The two biggest cons here being that I was breaking down literally every single week. I just told you guys that I spent about $20,000 on the bus and the build, and within 3 months of being on the road, I spent another $18,000 on mechanical issues, transmission replacements, and pulling apart the entire front end of the bus to figure out what the heck was wrong, because no one likes to work on a school bus, I've learned. Additionally, I also kind of mentioned this with the van of people having these perceptions of people who live in buses or these non-Sprinter vans, and that was definitely the case with the bus. Even in towns that are very welcoming and friendly to vans or people living on the road, the bus was not that, and there were multiple times where I was a patron of a parking lot, you know, going into Safeway to buy my groceries, for example, and I was given really stern knocks on my door telling me I'd been there for hours and then I needed to leave, when in fact all I had done was buy my groceries and load them back into my fridge. So I definitely don't miss the negative stereotype that came with living in a bus and the judgment and looks that I got, but I do miss the space sometimes, for sure. And now moving on to the truck camper, I am in it now, so I'm biased, but the two biggest things that stand out are reliability and 4x4. I'm able to access any spot that I've wanted so far, and I have yet to have any issues with the truck. Toyota's, especially the 4.7 liter V8 of the first gen Tundra, is known for being extremely reliable, and I have done maintenance, I have had things replaced, but all preemptively to try to get ahead of issues that might potentially happen on the road, because I know what it's like to be stranded. And so yes, I have spent money on the truck, general upkeep, water pump replacement, alternators, timing belts, all of that good stuff, which definitely wasn't cheap, but it is much cheaper than being without your home in a hotel, renting cars, flying around the country, trying to make up for it once it has happened. And the last thing I'll say as a pro has been just the interior space. It's very functional and clean. It works really well for both Tara and I, has ample storage for nearly all of my gear except for some off-season things, and the living space itself is just really custom tailored to what I want. Having a bigger kitchen, a big working space, a good sized sleeping space, and storage. Do you ever have emotional breakdowns on the road or get lonely? Yes, I guess. But just because I experience a full range of human emotions, I wouldn't say that I have emotional breakdowns because I'm on the road, and this maybe I'll talk about more later, but I think it's a common misconception that when you're out here, you're on this perpetual vacation, that you don't have any issues other than maybe your rig breaking down. But life out here is really just life in a rig. Van life is life in a van, and there's no way to sugarcoat that, unfortunately. When you get out here, it might seem like you're leaving your problems behind, but they'll follow you. Your family still exists if you have issues with your family. Your partner is still there if you have issues with your partner. Any mental health you might have been struggling with before you got on the road doesn't disappear, unfortunately, when you get out here. And the same goes for anything else you want to insert here as an issue that you might have in your life. And so I don't have road specific emotional breakdowns. I've been nervous about things like selling and buying new rigs, but in terms of being out here, I actually think that if anything, I feel more open and clear-minded. I think that I personally function and think and process much better in nature, and generally speaking, that's where I spend my time. So yes, but no. Is there anything that you would add, modify, or change to your rig now that you're done with the build? No, thankfully. I think a lot of people would assume that I might say a shower or a bathroom, but the toilet that I have in my hallway right here works just fine. I have a gym membership, and I do have both an outside cold shower, and I also have a heated bag that I can fill with warm water if I need that. And so in terms of the shower situation, which is usually why people ask this question, no. Things that I want to add in the future that I've held off on, I don't want to have to use them, but as a safety measure, especially because I am solo so often, I would love to eventually get a winch to put in my front bumper. There's a space for it, but they're just expensive if you want to get one that's higher quality, and I'd rather save my money and wait to be able to afford that than buy something cheap that might fail me when I need it, since not much I can really do about that then. And last but not least, how do I get power on the road? This is an age-old question. How do you stay off grid for so long? How is your solar system working for you? And do you have enough batteries? I will say that as we head into winter, I've had to be more power conscious, but I have yet to run out of power entirely. I have not had a situation yet where my water would not turn on, my fan would not run, or that my fridge turned off, which I'm very grateful for because it's definitely a possibility out here. Right now my power setup is 450 watts of solar on the roof. I have one 250 watt panel, and y'all have probably seen that I have two panels that go down the nose, and those are also 100 watts each, making 450. Those come in and feed a 40 amp MPPT charge controller. That amperage is just based off of running my panels in series parallel, since they're two varying sizes, and it will more than handle that input of solar. And if I wanted to, I could even get a flexible panel that plugged in from the outside if I were ever in an instance where I felt like I needed more solar coming in. That whole system feeds a 2000 watt inverter and a 200 amp hour lithium ion battery from Renogy. It's nothing fancy. I bought that battery because it was the most cost-effective way for me to get 200 amp hours. And in the future, I would really love to upgrade that to something like the 270 amp hour Battleborn Game Changer 3. That would be ideal to have almost 100 extra amp hours of usable capacity just for those extra long winter nights when I'm really not getting in power for multiple days. But there's always a chance that you're going to run out of power, which is why I am so excited to have partnered with Bluetti this year and their off-grid power solutions. If you're an outdoor recreationalist or you like viewing channels like myself, I'm sure that you've heard by now of today's sponsor, Bluetti. And I'm so excited today to be announcing their newest model, the Bluetti AC200L, one of their biggest, quietest, and fastest charging power stations yet. If you've been watching my videos for any length of time, you know that I have a soft place in my heart for Bluetti. And that's because regardless of the station or stations that I've been using while off-grid or in my build, I have always been impressed by their leading industry technology and their upgrades, as they truly do make a big difference in my life on the road. Like their other models, this power station comes with a 5-year warranty and a 3,000 life cycle guarantee, which I've done the math in the past, will last me many, many years to come, even though I charge my station multiple times a week sometimes when power is getting a little bit lean. But one of the best parts about this bigger, better system is that I actually don't have to charge it that often anymore. Boasting over a 2400 watt output and over a 2000 watt hour capacity, this power station has actually lasted me over a week and a half at this point of being at camp and not needing to recharge at all, which, considering my power situation that you guys have all been watching, has been a game changer. Something that I've really been taking advantage of, especially now as we get closer to winter, are coffee shops and breweries actually, which have been very kind in allowing me to bring in my power station and charge it up. But the best part about that is not only do I get to enjoy a coffee or a beer while it's happening, but it only takes 45 minutes to charge up to 80% capacity, as the station can handle over 2000 watts of AC input. So if you're anything like me and you plan on camping or being off-grid for a bulk of this upcoming winter season, or maybe you're just looking for a backup power source for those cold winter nights or your upcoming Thanksgiving feast, I'd highly recommend that you guys head down to the link in my description to check out the Bluetti AC200L for yourself. And thank you again to Bluetti for sponsoring today's video. All right, round two. We are here now with Maddie Taylor in her beautiful home to answer some of your pressing questions, and we're gonna go in order of least to most spicy. And in order to do this, I've actually picked out some hot sauces that I think are going to add to the experience a little bit. So we have a Thai sweet chili sauce, a black truffle hot sauce, a habanero honey mustard, and then finally the ghost pepper wing sauce, which I'm a little bit scared for, if I'm being honest. And earlier I went down to town and I got us some vegan pizza to enjoy this with, so we don't just have to take shots of hot sauce, because that would be miserable. The first question is, what does van life mean for us?
I would say it means freedom and exploration. I think for me, van life is very much in tandem with my job as a YouTuber. And so having a creative life where my job is tied so deeply with my travel, and a lot of community too, but you really have to seek it out and foster it intentionally.
Yeah, van life for me started out honestly as a way to save money. I did not plan to live in the forest as much as I do now, but actually I was gonna live in the city and I just didn't want to pay rent anymore and thought that it sounded cool. So that's obviously changed. And now van life for me, I think, is more about the community than anything. The travel is cool, but you guys have all seen I've actually been staying kind of in one area this year for the most part, and it's because the people. How do you decide where you're going to travel next, and how far out do you plan your travels?
I usually plan my travel around the weather. I try to stay in warmer areas with more sun because I rely wholly on solar, as do most nomads out here. And I'm not a planner at all. I'm very spontaneous. I feel that my plans are very much altered depending on who I'm with. If I'm alone, it's very much just at the pace that I feel. But if I'm with friends, I usually just go with the flow and do what other people are feeling like doing, honestly.
Yeah, I don't plan most of my stuff, actually. I don't know where I'm going this winter. I don't know where I'm going tomorrow, if I'm being honest. And so I don't really plan, and it's not because I don't like to plan. I actually am a planner, I think, by nature, but you just have to kind of go with the flow out here, and spontaneity is the spice of life. Is solo travel depressing? And if so, how do you get through lonely periods?
No and yes. I kind of feel like in any lifestyle, you might go through periods that are harder, that feel more lonely. Maybe in van life, when I first started out, I didn't know a lot of people on the road, and I think that was really hard, and that got really lonely. And as I was saying in the last question, it takes time to foster community. So the longer that you've been on the road, I think the less lonely and difficult it gets in that way. But I still undergo periods of dark times where I'm not feeling very good, and it would be honestly nice to have a big old community around me, and maybe I'm in the middle of nowhere alone, and sometimes that can get to me, but far more often I really enjoy alone time. I'm a bit of a lone wolf a lot of the times, and I enjoy it. I kind of thrive in that, so yes and no.
I also just realized we haven't had a single bite of pizza.
That's it.
Oh god. Okay.
She puts so much on the pizza. Are you gonna put the same amount when we get to the ghost pepper?
Maybe.
Okay, cool.
Depends how spicy we get. Not bad.
Mm-mm.
I am not depressed alone on the road. I will say that I'm definitely more of an extrovert than Maddie is. And so I do find time and community important. And a lot of times when I have in the past planned out my year on the road, it'll generally just be around maybe a couple of bigger events that I know that I want to go to, just because I do enjoy that part of it, the community. Again, it's a community for me. So I don't get depressed or lonely. And if I do, I think one of the beautiful things about this lifestyle, this coming week, I'm planning on going up and seeing a friend, and I can just take my home and travel there, and it's not that big of a deal. Whereas, I mean, if I was in a home, I would have to really plan things out and pack the car and feel like do a lot of extra steps to get out of a funk. And so when I find that I'm maybe feeling lonely or that I just want to be around people, I can just do that, which is super cool and very convenient. Okay, we're gonna step up the heat, even though this is not a spicier question, just because this was tasty, but not...
It was not spicy.
There was no spice.
At all.
This one is the black truffle hot sauce, which maybe a little more.
Like less spicy than black pepper.
I'm just saying something.
It was not spicy. Cheers.
Cheers.
Dink. Oh, I like that one. Still not spicy.
Like the questions, we're okay. Warm or winter weather this year?
Por qué no los dos?
Both. Yeah. Both.
Both. Yeah, I think it'd be cool to have my van a little more in the snow if I can, albeit in very controlled settings that are not far off road, where I've planned ahead. Because notoriously my van has broken down under that kind of pressure. And I just feel like I need to baby my van a little bit more than a Toyota camper that has 4-wheel capacity.
And similar for me. I think I'm gonna do a bit of winter over the next few weeks, but then also I'm looking forward to some time maybe in the desert. I'm not exactly sure where yet, but definitely somewhere south. Do you want to step it up?
Yeah.
Habanero.
Are any of
mustard?
them going to be spicy? This is ghost pepper.
Ghost pepper
this isn't
has to be spicy.
What if all 3 of these are not spicy at all, and then this one is
I just wasted my
unhinged?
money on a
I mean, they're delicious.
bunch of hot
They're just
sauce.
not hot.
We're gonna go for it. Wow.
It's like
It's building.
sriracha, maybe.
It's building a little. Okay, that one's a little. I'm a little sweaty. Do I look like I'm getting a little sweaty?
You look a little nervous.
Well, I'm glad. Do you have any plans to drive to Baja or the East Coast or anywhere else fun this winter?
I'm going to Baja. I went to Baja last year and I became just a walking advertisement in all of my videos.
Literally.
Because I love it so much there. It's just the place to be in winter. It's just so good for nomads because, one, it's always sunny and nice out. The sun's always out. It's flat, so I can baby my van there. And even the sandy beaches, they're drivable for sure. And it's also really affordable, which is a plus. And you get to experience a different culture. I feel like there's really no cons. Everyone is always so scared about Baja, and it's just not as scary as people think it is.
I'm trying to get confident like Maddie is about Baja. I might go. I don't know. I've been going back and forth all winter for a while there. I even thought I might spend the entire winter in the snow, which who knows? Like I said, spontaneity. But yeah, maybe. No East Coast plans though. Someone did ask that. I don't have a desire to go to the East Coast, not because I'm sure it's great, but the camping is just impossible back there, and it's really not very friendly. Cities aren't really my jam, and that's a lot of what's out there for people and rigs, I feel like. All right, I don't think we're quite at the top tier spice level, so maybe let's do this one again.
I really like that one,
but
so I'm
more.
so down. You're just gonna drench it.
But more.
She already put so much on.
I gotta keep it interesting for the people, you know?
Really good pizza.
I'm a little scared for the ghost pepper. If the moon was cheese, would you eat it?
Did it come from a cow? How did it get there? Why is it cheese? I have to ask these questions.
I'm gonna assume this person meant the dairy product. But
So it is made of cow dairy. If it's vegan cheese, I'll eat it.
My answer is yes. I am so sweaty.
I don't find it spicy.
All right, I come with a fifth hot sauce. All right, let's try this one.
Tink.
I'm gonna have indigestion. It's kind of vinegary.
Mm-hmm.
Do Tara and Eliza get along?
Yeah, it was kind of a slow burn for them. At first, Tara was feeling weird, and then about a week later, Eliza was feeling weird. Mm-hmm. We had to have Eliza on leash for Tara to get comfortable, and we had to have Tara off leash to get Eliza comfortable.
It's been a whole thing, and honestly, they're just very different dogs.
They really are.
You know, so I think that's probably why. I don't think either of them has ever hated the other, but they've definitely taken time to get warm.
But they are warm now.
Oh,
now
yeah.
They're so cute, honestly.
They'll
They'll run.
Each other everywhere.
Yeah, Tara's much faster than Eliza, but Eliza will keep asking Tara to chase her. And
Yeah.
it's just really, really adorable to watch. And sometimes they'll be running right next to each other, or they'll do some parallel play, just doing their own things, but you can tell they're vibing off of one another.
Yeah, it's been really fun to have them together, and also Tara now thinks that this is her second home.
Yes.
And will just jump in
She will.
whenever, and Eliza has been incredibly gracious and just letting her explore and walk around. So thank you, Eliza. How long does your propane last?
Usually about a month and a half. I refill it for anywhere between $3 to $7.
Yeah, mine I think is like a 17 pound, which I think is roughly 4 gallons. And for me, I've been running my heater a lot at night lately just to keep it warm for Tara especially. And I'd say that I've been refilling it every 4 to 6 weeks. It kind of just depends. But when I was just cooking and not using my heater in the summer and warmer months, which honestly has been up until these last couple of weeks, I hadn't refilled my propane tank since last November. So it really doesn't take much to cook and do the basic things day to day. And it costs $10 to $15 for me to refill mine. So not a big deal at all. All right, last question. Are you ready for this one? I think we owe ourselves the hottest hot sauce though yet.
I hope it's really spicy.
It says ghost pepper and apparently it's 5 out of 5. So I'm already sweating. Maddie's fine.
I'm fine.
She's fine.
I'm
So
totally
I mean,
fine.
here, tell me when. Oh,
Cheers.
hold on. Cheers. I'm scared. Are we dating? Is it hot? But to answer your question, no. Round 3, rapid fire, because this has already gone on too long. What's your favorite thing about winter on the road? Snow sports and watching Tara play outside. What camera gear and editing software do you use? Right now I'm shooting on a Sony a7 IV. I use a Rode mic, just the cheap one, and I edit on Final Cut Pro. Would you post your recipes and meals or create a cookbook? I'm no expert. I get most of my ideas and inspiration from other people, so probably not. But if you ever have a question, just leave it in the comments. What are your favorite rainy day hobbies? Reading, and lately watching movies, now that I have the bigger Bluetti. Do you have any Curly Girl shampoo and conditioner recommendations? I wish I did. I did like what I was using, but it's actually started to kind of weigh my hair down, so I would just say something that tends to your hair type and find a curly specialist, because that's been what's helped me the most. Do you have or would you do OnlyFans? Nope. But I also don't judge anyone that does. What gas mileage do you get with the truck and the camper? Usually 13.5 to 14 miles per gallon. What is your favorite season on the road? winter. It is so quiet out here. Normally this area is packed, and right now I'm the only person here. And it's a little bit cooler for Tara. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions. This was super fun, not only to sit down and speak with all of you kind of one-on-one, but also to have Maddie join in. If you guys haven't seen her already, I'll leave her channel down in the description below so you can go check her out as well. I'll see you guys next Sunday. You know what would be funny? I won't do it. To have this dialogue in the bloopers. For anybody who watches long enough, they get the whole thing. But it's hot.
You want it?